Let's talk about insurance. And no, I'm not talking about premiums or Luigi Mangione. We're talking about the new tier sets coming in 11.1 for all of the healers. Now, if you haven't looked at these, I will pin this down in the description below. So check out all of your tier lists for the specs you like to play. But today we're going to be talking about the healer one, which applies a new buff called insurance. And how insurance works is it's going to heal its target. It's a hot that heals over 15 seconds, but if any ally drops below 40%, it's going to pop and heal them. Now, obviously we can't get into the PTRs right now, so we can't like see all the data and how powerful this is, or we can't test interactions. But in today's video, I want to talk about some concerning interactions that are first to come to my mind when I think of a mechanic like this. And before we get into this, I want to say that coming up with this many tier sets every single season or every single tier is so hard, and I commend the devs for every win that they get, and I don't fault them for any like fail, like any bad tier sets or boring tier sets, because those just happen. It's just like in order for them to pump out as many tier sets as often as they are, there are going to be some duds. However, here I think with what they tried, I like this experimentation of like giving everyone these new mechanics based on their spec. I love that. That's so cool. And honestly, for the most part, I think we have a bunch of wins here. So I am a big fan. I am praising the devs, and I hope that everyone else does too. I think we should just recognize that this is a cool thing they do for us to have more fun in their game instead of just looking at the bad. But in today's video, we are going to look at some potential bad, because this is kind of going to be like my pre-PTR testing, some things, some interactions that I've thought of that I hope just get looked at and make sure that everything's interacting correctly even before the PTR, or maybe they just get looked at before the PTR even goes live. Just something that I wanted to make to kind of talk through this to see what my concerns are, and then also I want you guys to comment down below what you guys are concerned about given these tier sets. So yeah, we've talked about what insurance does. I want to talk about the wording. It's very cool. So you're going to put the hot on the ally that you heal, or you're going to have a chance to put it on the ally. But it says it's consumed if any ally drops. So if you put it on Tom, if Tom has an insurance buff on them, but then Tony drops down below 40% health, is it going to pop on Tom and heal Tony? Is that how it works? Because that's how it reads. That would be pretty cool. But there could be some interactions where that could be a bad thing, namely Evoker, which now this leads me to my actual first thought when I read this tier set is, man, how is this going to interact with all the different masteries? Because we have deep healing, the restoration shaman mastery, which is you increase your healing of your spells based on how low the health percentage is. Now look, it's not like the best mastery. I don't think I've ever seen shamans push for mastery, because it's just hard to get use out of this unless you're progging a very difficult boss that gives you a lot of uptime on a high percentage of this mastery. However, this does just kind of inherently read like it might also dip into the value of their mastery, because it's going to be keeping people or attempting to keep people above 40% health. That will just inherently, in my opinion, reduce the value even further of their mastery. So will we see some mastery buffs for Shaman? Will we see some changes in how it works, or a complete total mastery change? But that's the first thing that came to mind, was the Resto Shaman mastery. But then after that, almost more importantly, I thought of the Evoker mastery. How it works is healing that you do is increased to your allies given that your health percentage is higher than their health percentage. So if you are like 55% and they're 50%, you just get your full mastery. You get this big bonus to your healing. But if you're at a lower health percent, you get nothing. So it's a win or lose. It's an all or nothing situation. So if you apply your insurance to like 5 allies, like you've done this big massive ramp, and then all of a sudden you get hit by something, or you get a dot or something, then you are screwed, because you are going to be below everyone's health percentage, unless I do think it would be good if it actually does pop on your allies to heal you. That could be good to help you get up faster. But I don't know, some of these mastery percentages or masteries that deal with your health percentage kind of are losing a bit of value. Also, I want to talk about like the Resto Druid Mastery. I'm pretty sure this does not work. I guess we can look that up right now. It works based on the amount of hots you have, and yes, this is a hot, but I'm pretty sure this one has it listed. It says your restoration heal over time effects, and I think there is a category of heals that go under restoration heal effects, so it's not going to work with Druid Mastery. I'm pretty sure. I guess we'll have to get in and test it, but I would just think it would not be added to the list of restoration heal spells. And then also Mistweaver Mastery. I don't think it's going to work with this too, which whenever you cast one of these spells or you kick, now whenever you kick up a Gust of Mist, which is like a little proc heal. Is this proc heal going to have a chance to apply the buff? In some cases I'm like, I hope it doesn't, because then that would be pretty strong. You'll vivify a target and they'll get a Gust of Mist proc on them, so that would be two rolls of that dice trying to get that insurance buff on them. But also on the other hand, I'm like, man, I do hope this works, or at least something else like it works, because of just the way that Mistweaver works, and we will get into that. But I kind of hope this works, or at least an iteration of this works, like it can apply insurance. But we'll get into that like in two steps, like a minute of this video. But next, I want to talk about ease of application, because how different healers heal, it's going to be hard to balance the same buff or the same mechanic across all the healers, because they all heal differently. Like some of the best examples that I can think of are Restoration Druid versus like Disc Priest. A Disc Priest, I'm thinking the only way that they're realistically going to be able to apply these insurances is by casting Power Word Radiance, which hits 5 allies, and hopefully you can apply more than one per radiance charge. Like hopefully it just auto applies to like 4 or 5 of the people or something, because if you compare them to Resto Druids are going to be spamming about 10 rejuves between the time, maybe even more, between the time that you cast your first radiance and your second radiance. So to me that reads like they're going to get much more value out of this tier set, the druids are, than a disc priest. So hopefully they balance it in a way to where specs like Disc Priest don't kind of fall behind, because they have less good ways to apply these insurance buffs than specs like Resto Druid, which I think is a fair thing to say. I think there are going to be specs that can actually spot heal around, like Resto Shamans, Resto Druids, like everyone's going to be spot healing. And then there's specs that just don't perform like that, like Disc Priest or Mistweaver monks in their Mythic Plus build or their Punch and Kick build, is another great example, which we'll get into in a second. But I want to talk about also spells like Efflorescence. We see like in the Shaman tier set, Shaman down here, their Healing Rain, it's built into their 4 set that it will apply an insurance buff. But when you cast spells like Efflorescence, which sit there and kind of just pulse healing, it's a big ring that you put down, same with Healing Rain. Will these spells also have a chance? I don't believe so. I kind of don't hope so, because that would be very powerful and a very, very strong thing that both Resto specs have, because those sit there and heal allies inside. Those will have a chance to apply multiple insurance buffs if they work like that. I hope they don't. But once again, that's just something that we're going to have to get in and test. And I think that could be a very powerful way to just get a good chunk of insurances if it does have a chance to proc. But me guessing based on the Shaman 4 set is that they're not going to work with insurance. They're not going to have a chance to apply that hot onto the ally. Once again, hopefully they don't. But then what's next? Oh, as a Mistweaver main, I have to say this. Let's scroll up to the Mistweavers. I hope that your ancient teachings or your mastery can apply your insurance buffs. Because if you're in Mythic Plus, you only apply Renewing Mists, you only do the occasional Vivify to keep health bars topped, you only do this between pools, only 2 charges between pools, and then the occasional, like I said, the occasional Vivify throughout packs. However, what you do all the time, what you do rotationally, kind of like what a Resto Druid does with their rejuves, the regrowths, all of their casted hots that will work with insurance, you punch and kick, which either will, or it will do both. It will kick up Ancient Teachings, which is just healing onto your allies whenever you punch and kick, and then it will kick up your Mastery, Gust of Mist, which is just healing whenever you kick, thanks to a talent that we take, and with Chi-Ji, like a few different things are going to be kicking up these Gust of Mists. But if they don't make insurance work with these in some way, like maybe give them a small, one of them, either one of them will work, but give one of them a small chance to apply an insurance buff, then that will just, it'll just make this tier set almost useless in a Mythic Plus environment, because that's just what we play around the most in Mythic Plus is our punches and kicks. So hopefully this works with either your Mastery or your Ancient Teachings. And then number 2, Outside of Mythic Plus, this concerns me as someone who really desperately wants an Ancient Teachings build to be somewhat viable in raid at some point in the near future. I think they've done a lot of changes that have pushed or closed the gap between like a Chi-Ji build and a Yu'lon build. In fact, we saw some Chi-Ji builds kind of slip into some cheese fights in Mythic raiding this tier, but hopefully Ancient Teachings and Punching and Kicking doesn't get forgotten when it comes to the Mistweaver tier set. That's just something that I really hope. And on the same token, maybe there's an interaction with how every time Atonement heals, it has a chance to apply an insurance, even if a smaller chance. I just hope that the ease of application is kind of even across the board. You're not going to see like 10 times the amount of insurances on one spec than you will on another spec. Now, speaking of rating with these insurance buffs being introduced to the game, we've already kind of talked about how some masteries might get messed up, like health percentages are going to be different than what you're used to. But that also really kind of hurts some specific healing profiles. If you think about it, Resto Druids, I keep mentioning them because I think they just don't really care about these insurance buff. If I had to guess, Resto Druids are fine if everyone is sitting there at 80% health. They kind of thrive in that environment. They can just wild growth, efflorescence, and spread rejuves, and do the occasional regrowth when someone dips a little bit lower. They are fine in that environment. But a holy paladin is much less fine unless they're in their avenging crusader. They're trying to holy shock and word of glory around trying to heal people. And I guess in that situation they would swap to light of dawn, which is just the lesser of two evils, really. But they want people to be at lower health percentages so their word of glories don't go into overhealing. That's just their ideal scenario, is like they are the shock healer. So with this new insurance buff being introduced, you're all of a sudden, depending on how strong this pop heal is, which I don't think it's going to be too strong, but depending on how strong it is, you're going to have 4 different healers in most raid scenarios, applying insurances left and right. And if they do pop on any ally that drops below 40% health, like it reads, to where it's going to all go into Tony, then all of a sudden there's just going to be a lot less shock healing that needs to be done, which on one hand is good. It's going to keep your group alive. But on the other hand, specs like Holy Paladin are going to kind of suffer a little bit. If I'm guessing, that is just a worry. It's an anxiety. Look, I do this for a living. I worry. So maybe none of this happens and I'm just like over here dooming about nothing. But once again, I am very happy about all this. This is just, if I had to sit here and nitpick, this is what I found. Anyways, so Holy Paladin already is kind of, to me, they're going to suffer the most from the introduction of insurance if it is powerful. Like, if it heals like 5% of their HP, then all of a sudden they're just going to get popped up to a healthy health percentage. And then that word of glory that they throw into them is going to get overhealed. A good bit of it will. But on the same side of that same coin, or on the different side, on the, what am I saying? On the other side of that same coin, Holy Paladins might have to adapt. I mean, I was talking about Holy Paladin the other day about how they heal in raid, and they word of glory as their spender if they know they're going to get the full healing, and then he said they light of dawn if they know a lot of it's going to go into overhealing, which makes sense, right? But to me, this, if insurance is strong and if insurance does a good job of whenever people aren't killed by mechanics, they get topped up kind of quickly. If insurance is strong, then all of a sudden, Holy Paladins might, like, healers like Holy Paladin might start swapping how they play. Like, imagine a world where Holy Paladins fully just dive into Light of Dawns because no one's ever, in mortal range. Or like things like Holy Priest swap from like Serenity spamming or whatever, trying to do good Serenity and spot healing. What if they swapped like a Circle of Life, or what is it, Circle of Healing, Prayer of Healing, and like a full on Sanctify build? Like, imagine. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. That's like the extreme doom scenario. But I don't know. I feel like this just does affect certain healing profiles more than it affects the others, and it also, like I said, it might work differently with different masteries, and depending on how it interacts with certain spells, it can be implemented into the game in a very positive way, or it can be implemented into the game in a very like scary way, a very strong way for certain healers. But all of that being said, I want to say that I am so happy for the four sets. And I even wrote out like this tiny little paragraph. I'm just going to read it because if I try to say it off my memory, I'll mess it up. But I do like all of the four sets. I really do. They're not like the most flashy four sets I've ever seen, which is fine. I think it's fine to take these experimental seasons, and I am happy to do this. But the paladins are going to be shaving time off of their divine toll, which is very cool. And then on the same side of that, evokers are going to be shaving time off of their verdant embrace, which is very good, especially in a mythic plus environment. You're going to have that spot heal more often, which is very nice. And importantly, I guess I can scroll up to it, they're going to be applying it to themselves whenever they verdant embrace. They're not only putting it on the ally, they're putting it on themselves, which is very good for their mastery once again. And then Mistweavers are going to have just stronger insurances, which is pretty cool. I guess we're just the insurance agents of Azeroth, I guess, which is cool. But the power of this four set really does scale off of how powerful insurance is. How strong is that hot? And then how strong will that pop heal be? Will it do a percentage heal so that it actually touches tank's health bars? Or will it just do like a small amount of proc healing, like a mastery proc's worth of healing for a Mistweaver? Who knows? I guess we'll have to wait and see once we can open it in the game and try it out. But that is pretty cool. Ours are going to be stronger than everyone's. That's kind of cool, given that we can have good coverage, which we will. Let's be honest. Disc priests have a really cool one, a really cool force that I scrolled too far. So their insurances buff the healing done to that ally, which is pretty cool. You see, they're granted insurance. Allies with your insurance absorb effects receive 15% increased healing from you, which is very cool given that this works with atonement. If this doesn't work with atonement, this is like kind of a do nothing four set, or at least this part of the four set. But if it works with atonement, which I think it will, obviously it's all healing received from you, which I would think works with atonement, hopefully it does, then that's very cool. All of a sudden their ramps are going to get even more spicy, which is just what they need. They can really play into this, lean into it, which is, like I said, pretty cool. But we'll have to see how that works. Holy priests are going to have stronger Apoth ramps, which is pretty cool, and it increases all of their healing. So if they unleash that halo during that Apoth ramp, they're just going to go crazy, which is pretty nice. I do like that. I don't think it's like the flashiest of all of them, if I'm being honest, but it's a pretty cool tier set. It looks like it'd be fun to do a Holy Priest ramp nowadays. Now, Resto Druids are going to get some free hots out of this exchange, which is pretty cool. Every now and then, whenever an insurance pops, it's just going to apply one of their missing hots on that target, which can be very good. You know, if you get one of the stronger effects in the best moment, like if you get a wild growth as someone just takes a big chunk, that's going to be pretty nice. That's going to start healing into them very quickly. And then by the time wild growth falls off, they're going to be topped up, hopefully. So that one's pretty cool. And then who's left? Who do I have left? Shaman, which I'm very excited about. Shaman has more interplay between Healing Rain and Chain Heal. Whenever they cast Healing Rain, it's going to apply an insurance, and then whenever insurance is consumed, your next Chain Heal, Healing Surge, or Healing Wave, which, let's be real, I'm a Chain Heal fiend, is going to be increased by 10%. That will scale off of other modifiers that you have on these spells, which is very cool. So I am very hopeful. I really am. I don't want this video to come off very negative. I'm saying a lot of things that are some concerns because, like I said, I just can't get in and test them. And I hope that knowing the devs, I know they've thought about all of these interactions. I know that because I have a ton of faith in our devs. But are there any that I missed? Are there any that, like, when you first read insurance and all of these tier sets that you were like, uh-oh, this spell might get broken or something? Let me know all of that in the comments below. And also, if you're a dev, you know, hats off to you. You guys kill it time and time again. I'm very happy with these tier sets. I think it's going to be fun, given that insurance is strong enough to make an impact in Mythic Plus, but not too strong to where it kind of breaks rating. You know, the last thing we want to see is, you know, group swap to 3 healers because now we have a free buff that, you know, does like a big amount of healing. But I don't know. I'm sure you guys have balanced it pretty well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Once again, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below and like this video on your way out. Make sure you're subbed, but I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care, guys.